It takes 12 bees their entire lives to make just 1 teaspoon of honey, a golden liquid that's been treasured by humans for over 8,000 years. In the United States alone, we consume more than 450 million pounds of honey each year, using it in everything from tea and toast to cosmetics and medicines. And worldwide, that number soars past 2 million tons. Honey has been used by humans for thousands of years. The oldest known record comes from a cave painting in Spain, estimated to be over 8,000 years old, showing a person harvesting honey from a wild hive. In ancient Egypt, honey was used not just as food, but also in medicine and religious rituals. Today, honey comes in many different varieties, depending on the flowers visited by the bees, the region, and the processing method. Let's take a look at some of the most common and rare types. Common types of honey are clover honey, wildflower honey, and acacia honey. However, there are much more rare and unique varieties of honey. Among those are Manuka honey, New Zealand, known for its antibacterial properties and often used medicinally. It's one of the most expensive types globally. Cedar honey, Yemen, sourced from cedar trees and valued for its strong, complex taste and health benefits. Elfish honey, often called the world's rarest honey. It's harvested from deep caves and can sell for thousands of dollars per kilogram. Heather honey, Scotland, thick, jelly-like consistency with a rich aromatic flavor, rare and highly prized in gourmet markets. Which one is your favorite variety of honey, by the way? And what is your favorite way of enjoying it? Leave us a comment below the video. I'm curious to know. But no matter the variety, the process of making honey remains a perfect collaboration between nature and human care. Now let's see how it's done, step by step. The journey of honey begins long before the factory, with the art and science of beekeeping, also known as apiculture. This is where human care and natural behavior work in harmony. Beekeepers manage colonies of honeybees, often in wooden structures called Langstroth hives, which are designed with removable frames for easy inspection and harvesting. Each hive can house tens of thousands of bees, including 1 queen, hundreds of drones, and thousands of worker bees. A typical hive consists of several sections: the brood box, where the queen lays eggs, the honey supers, where the bees store honey, and a queen excluder, a mesh barrier that keeps the queen from entering the honey storage area. Location is critical. Hives are placed near diverse floral sources: clover, lavender, acacia, or wildflowers, depending on the desired honey variety. The availability and quality of nectar directly influence both the taste and quality of the honey produced. Beekeepers often move their hives throughout the year to follow blooming seasons. This practice, called migratory beekeeping, is especially common in commercial honey production. It ensures bees always have access to fresh nectar sources, and it supports pollination and agriculture along the way. Caring for the hive is more than just placing boxes outdoors. Beekeepers regularly check for signs of disease, parasites like varroa mites, and overall colony strength. The health of the hive determines how much honeybees can produce and how sustainable the process is. When flowers bloom, bees collect nectar using their long proboscises and store it in a special honey stomach. Along the way, they also gather pollen to feed young bees. Once back in the hive, they pass the nectar to other bees, who begin breaking it down with enzymes. The nectar is then placed into honeycomb cells, where bees fan their wings to reduce moisture. As the nectar thickens and enzymes continue their work, it gradually transforms into honey. Once ready, bees seal the cells with wax to preserve the honey for future use. At this point, the honey is ready for use by the colony. But for beekeepers, it signals the perfect time to harvest. In the next step, we'll see how the honey is carefully collected from the hive. With the honey now capped and ready, it's time for the beekeeper to step in. Harvesting honey is a delicate process, one that requires patience, precision, and respect for the colony. Before opening a hive, beekeepers use a bee smoker, a simple tool that emits cool smoke. The smoke doesn't harm the bees, but it does calm them. It disrupts their alarm pheromones and encourages them to retreat into the hive to protect the queen and consume honey, making them more docile. Once the hive is open, the beekeeper carefully lifts out each frame to inspect it. The goal is to find frames where the honeycomb is fully capped, a clear sign that the honey is mature and ready for extraction. Frames selected for harvest are gently brushed or shaken to remove any remaining bees. This step must be done with care to avoid harming the bees or disrupting the colony's organization. The harvested frames are then transported to a honey processing area, often a dedicated honey house or factory facility. There, the next phase begins, unlocking the honey stored behind those wax seals. But not all the honey is taken. Ethical beekeepers always leave enough honey behind for the colony's survival, especially heading into the colder months. After all, honey is their primary food source when flowers are no longer blooming. With the honey safely removed from the hive and brought to the processing area, we now transition from the field to the factory, where technology takes over to help bring this natural product to your table. When honey-filled frames reach the processing facility, the wax seals covering each cell must be removed, a step called uncapping. This exposes the honey inside. In smaller setups, beekeepers use heated knives to gently slice off the wax. Larger operations rely on machines with blades or rollers to uncap both sides quickly and efficiently. The removed wax, known as cappings wax, is collected and reused for products like candles and balms. With the wax caps removed and the combs exposed, it's time to release the honey. This is where one of the most important machines in honey production comes into play: the honey extractor. In a modern facility, uncapped frames are loaded into an electric honey extractor, a large spinning drum that uses centrifugal force to pull the honey from the comb. As the machine spins at high speed, the honey is flung out of the open cells and runs down the walls of the drum. It then collects at the bottom, where it can be drained off through a valve. The honey flows slowly, thick and golden, into a collection tank. At this point, it's still raw, containing small bits of wax, pollen, and other natural particles. One of the biggest advantages of centrifugal extraction is that it preserves the honeycomb structure. The frames can be returned to the hive, allowing the bees to reuse the comb, saving them time and energy on rebuilding. From here, the honey still needs to be cleaned and prepared for packaging, but the hard part is done. What started in a flower has now become the thick, sweet liquid we know as honey. Next, we'll look at how honey is filtered and prepared for bottling. Once the honey has been extracted, it's thick, golden, and full of natural bits and pieces. These include tiny fragments of wax, pollen, and sometimes even the occasional bee wing or leg. To ensure a smooth, clean final product, the honey must be filtered. The first stage is usually coarse filtering, where honey passes through a mesh or screen to remove larger particles like wax and hive debris. This step preserves the honey's natural character while cleaning out anything unwanted. Next, the honey is often allowed to settle in large tanks. During this stage, air bubbles and any remaining tiny particles naturally float to the surface. Some producers skim this foam off the top to ensure the honey looks clear and glossy. However, not all honey is filtered the same way. Some producers choose to leave more pollen and natural particles in the honey, labeling it as raw honey, prized for its texture and nutritional value. The degree of filtering depends on the intended market. Raw or minimally filtered honey is popular among natural food consumers, while crystal clear honey is often preferred for commercial packaging. Once filtered, the honey is almost ready for bottling. In some cases, especially for highly processed, commercial-grade honey, there's one more step: pasteurization. Pasteurization involves gently heating the honey, typically around 60 to 70 degrees Celsius, 140 to 158 degrees Fahrenheit. This helps kill any yeast cells and slows down the natural crystallization process, giving the honey a longer shelf life and a smoother, clearer appearance. Once the honey is filtered and pasteurized, if required, it's ready to be bottled. Automated machines fill jars or squeeze bottles with precision, then seal and label them for distribution. From here, the honey is shipped to stores or sold directly to consumers, pure, golden, and ready to enjoy. And there you have it, the incredible journey of honey, from buzzing bees in the fields to that sweet golden drizzle on your morning toast. So next time you enjoy a spoonful of honey, remember, you're tasting the hard work of thousands of bees and a whole lot of teamwork, both insect and human. Who knew the road to sweetness was such a wild flight? If you love this behind-the-scenes look, hit that like button and subscribe. And just in case you have missed some of the older episodes, we have you covered. We've attached a special selection of past factory review episodes to this video. So stay with us and enjoy more fascinating food discoveries. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next episode. Now, picture this. You are standing in front of the yogurt shelf in your grocery store and about to decide which one of those fancy tastes you will take home. But have you ever wondered how that creamy, tangy, delicious yogurt you scoop up with your spoon makes its way from a factory to your grocery store? Well, you're in for a treat, because today we're going behind the scenes to discover the amazing process of how yogurt is made in a factory. All right, folks, we're about to enter a world where milk, science, and flavor come together to create yogurt magic. Let's dive right in. It all starts with fresh milk arriving at the factory. Depending on the recipe, it can be cow's milk, goat's milk, or even plant-based milk alternatives. But it's not just any milk that makes the cut. First, it has to go through a strict quality control process. Experts test the milk to ensure it's free from impurities and has the right levels of fat and protein. But not only proteins, yogurt has lots of other health benefits for your body. Yogurts are also high in calcium, vitamins, and live culture, or probiotics. Low-fat yogurt can be a useful source of protein on a weight loss diet. Probiotics may boost the immune system. So, in eating this delicious treat, you are even doing something good for your health. But before we continue, I would like to ask you for a quick favor. We are putting our hearts into the videos for you, and your support means the world to us. So, please subscribe to our channel, like and share with your favorite people, and let's continue our journey together through more fascinating food discoveries. So, once the milk has gone through the quality control, next up is pasteurization. This step is all about safety and setting the stage for our yogurt. The milk is heated to a specific temperature, usually around 185 degrees Fahrenheit, 85 degrees Celsius, to kill any harmful bacteria. Think of it like giving the milk a spa day to cleanse and refresh. This step also helps the milk proteins get ready to create that creamy texture we all love in yogurt. After pasteurization, the milk moves on to homogenization. This process breaks down fat molecules in the milk to ensure a smooth and consistent texture. No one wants chunky yogurt, right? Homogenization is like a super blender for milk. It ensures that every spoonful of yogurt is just as smooth and creamy as the last. Now comes the science-y part, adding live bacteria cultures. These are the friendly bacteria that turn milk into yogurt through fermentation. 2 superstar strains, Lactobacillus bulgaricus and Streptococcus thermophilus, are added to the milk. Now look at those. These little guys are the real MVPs. They eat up the natural sugars in the milk, known as lactose, and produce lactic acid. That's what gives yogurt its tangy flavor and thick texture. Once the cultures are added, the milk is transferred to fermentation tanks. The mixture is kept warm, usually around 110 degrees Fahrenheit, 43 degrees Celsius, to create the perfect environment for the bacteria to do their job. Think of this step like baking a cake, but instead of an oven, we're using tanks, and instead of cake batter, it's milk and bacteria. The mixture ferments for 4 to 7 hours, and voila, it starts turning into yogurt. Now, if we're going to process just a plain simple yogurt, we would go straight to the next step, the cooling part. But I want to give you a little caviar here and show you what step is done to produce an extra luxurious and creamy yogurt before cooling. The Greek yogurt. The step we are looking at here is called straining. This step separates Greek yogurt from regular yogurt you find in your grocery store fridge. This is done using special filters or centrifuges, which separate the yogurt from the watery part of the milk. For every gallon of milk, you only get about 1/3 as much Greek yogurt. Talk about concentrated goodness. The result? A super thick protein-packed yogurt with that luxurious texture we all love. So after fermentation, Or after straining for the Greek yogurt, the yogurt is rapidly cooled to stop the bacteria from overworking. If they keep going, the yogurt could end up too sour. Cooling locks in that perfect tangy flavor and creamy texture. It's like telling the bacteria, "Great job, team, you can rest now." Now, it's time to jazz things up. This is where the yogurt gets its personality. Fruit purees, sweeteners, vanilla, or even chocolate are mixed in for flavored yogurt options. For plain yogurt fans, this step is skipped, and the yogurt stays simple and classic. Fun fact, factories use precise machines to ensure the flavors are evenly distributed. Ever notice how your strawberry yogurt has the same delicious taste in every bite? That's no accident. By the way, what's your favorite flavor? Do you like regular yogurt, or do you enjoy the luxurious Greek yogurt? Leave us a comment below the video. Okay guys, now once the yogurt is flavored, or left plain, it's time for packaging. The yogurt is pumped into individual containers, big tubs, single-serve cups, or even drinkable bottles. Machines seal the lids airtight to keep the yogurt fresh. And don't forget the labels. These machines can label thousands of yogurt cups in minutes. Talk about efficiency. Before the yogurt is shipped out, it undergoes one last round of quality control. Technicians test the texture, flavor, and even the live bacteria levels to make sure everything meets the factory standards. Yep, there's an official yogurt taste test. What a job, right? Every batch must be perfect before it hits the shelves. Once the yogurt passes quality control, it's packed into refrigerated trucks and shipped to grocery stores near you. And there you have it, folks. That creamy, dreamy yogurt you love so much has gone through quite the adventure to get to your breakfast table. I hope you enjoyed this behind-the-scenes look at how yogurt is made. Next time you dig into your favorite flavor, you'll know just how much care and science went into creating it. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment below. Hey there, syrup lovers! Did you know that the maple syrup industry in North America produces around 3.5 million gallons of syrup every year? That's a lot of maple goodness. But here's the thing. Making that syrup is no easy feat. It takes a precise combination of nature, tradition, and technology to create that golden, sweet liquid we all know and love. So, how exactly is maple syrup made? Well, let's take a deep dive into the process. But before we jump in, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more sweet content. Let's begin where all the magic starts, tapping the trees. In early spring, when the temperatures start to fluctuate between freezing nights and warm days, the sap in sugar maple trees begins to flow. But how do we get that sap out? Well, we need to tap the trees. Tapping is done by drilling a small hole in the tree trunk and inserting a metal spout called a tap. These taps are usually connected to buckets or modern tubing systems that run between trees to collect the sap. The sap is mostly water, with just a little bit of sugar in it, about 2 to 3%. And it takes a lot of sap to make just 1 gallon of syrup. In fact, it takes about 40 gallons of sap to make just 1 gallon of pure maple syrup. After the trees are tapped, the sap begins to flow. But how does it get from the trees to the sugar shack where the real magic happens? Well, nature does most of the work here. The freezing nights and warming days cause pressure changes inside the tree that make the sap rise up through the trunk and flow out of the tap. This process can last for a few weeks during the early spring when the conditions are just right. The sap flows best on days when the temperature is above freezing but the nights are still cold. This temperature fluctuation causes pressure to build up inside the tree, forcing the sap out. Once the sap has been collected, it's time to move it to the next stage, harvesting the sap. In a traditional maple syrup operation, this involves gathering buckets filled with sap and transporting them to a storage tank. In more modern systems, tubing is used to transport the sap directly to a central location. Once the sap is in the tank, it's ready for the next big step, concentrating. Fresh maple sap is mostly water, and it takes a lot of sap to make syrup. So before we can start boiling, we need to concentrate that sap to save time and energy. Enter reverse osmosis. Reverse osmosis is a process where the sap is filtered through membranes that separate the water from the sugar. By pushing the sap through these special filters under pressure, we can remove a lot of water content before it even hits the evaporator. This makes the next step, evaporation, much faster and more energy efficient. This saves a lot of time and wood, which is good for the environment and for the syrup maker's bottom line. Now we're getting to the good stuff, evaporation. After reverse osmosis has done its job, we take the concentrated sap and boil it down in a giant evaporator. The evaporator is an industrial-sized pan that sits over a fire or a propane burner. The goal here is simple: get rid of as much water as possible until the sap becomes thick enough to be syrup. As the sap boils, it changes. The water evaporates and the syrup slowly starts to take shape, changing color and becoming more concentrated. This is a delicate process because we need to boil the sap to exactly the right consistency and temperature. The syrup is done when it reaches about 219 degrees Fahrenheit, 104 degrees Celsius. At that point, the sap has reached about 66% sugar content, and the liquid is thick enough to be considered syrup. But boiling it to the right temperature isn't just about making syrup. It also brings out the flavor. That's where the Maillard reaction comes into play. This is a process that happens when sugars and amino acids in the sap react together under heat. It's what gives syrup its rich, complex flavor and its darker color. As the sap boils, the sugars in the sap break down and caramelize, creating those delicious caramel and butterscotch flavors we love. The longer the sap boils, the darker and richer the syrup becomes, which is why late-season syrup has that bold, robust flavor. So, next time you pour syrup over your pancakes, you can thank the Maillard reaction for all that deep, caramel goodness. After the syrup is ready, it's filtered one last time to remove any final impurities. And then it's poured into bottles or jars. From here, it's ready to be labeled, packaged, and shipped out to stores all over the world. And that's it. From tree to table, the journey of maple syrup is a sweet one that requires precision, skill, and a little bit of magic from both nature and technology. Now, every time you pour syrup on your waffles or pancakes, you'll know exactly how it made its way to your plate.